Welcome to Recruiting is No Joke. I am your host, Joel Lalji. It is great to be here with you guys, as always. We got another fun episode, action-packed. I'm sure you're going to learn a lot. It's going to be the best episode ever, and we can go back to the 100 past episodes and say this is the greatest episode of all time. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Recruiting is No Joke. This week's episode was brought to you by Talent Llama. Talent Llama is the AI interview platform for high-volume knowledge worker hiring. It helps teams screen faster, fairer, and without the chaos. Instead of sorting through resumes or juggling calendars, Talent Llama gives every candidate a fair, low-pressure, skills-based voice interview. No more awkward scheduling, no one-way videos, just natural conversations that highlight real skills. And because evaluations are instant and structured, slow response time and ghosting are a thing of the past. You move faster and the candidates feel seen, not forgotten. So check out Talent Llama today. Talent Llama is refreshingly candidate-friendly, a solution for the future. Thanks so much, Talent Llama, for supporting this week's episode. Now back to the episode. But I'm joined by a new friend, someone that I followed for a long time, just admired his work. And I think we connected about a month ago and we're like, let's just do a podcast together. So Ben Eubanks, welcome to the show. Good to have you here. Why don't you give everyone who doesn't know who you are, just kind of like a brief intro, like who you are, what you do, who you do it for.
Yeah, number one, the world's best podcast guest, I think, is what you just laid out for me.
Yes.
So good luck to me on that one. Goodness, that's a new crown, a new title. I have to get the sash, Joel. I need the sash to make it all work
I got
out.
a medal coming your way. So
okay, perfect. That's all that really matters. So, hey, everybody, glad to be here. I am an author, speaker, researcher, live in Huntsville, Alabama. So by day, I'm the chief research officer for Lighthouse Research Advisory, which really means I'm just a professional nerd, gathering data, looking at trends, trying to figure out what's happening in the space, and then sharing that data back with all of our friends out there, all the employers, talent leaders, on what they're thinking and feeling, how they're making decisions, and all that good stuff. So for me, I love the research because before that, I was a practitioner. I was a recruiter myself. I spent time as an HR leader, ran a team, ran a department, all those things. And I loved that so much. It was a joy. It was what I was born to do. I wanted to be an HR when I was a kid, even before I knew what it was called. So that's always my claim to fame there. And then since then, I've written a couple of books, Talent Scarcity, Artificial Intelligence for HR, and others, really trying to share the things I'm learning back with everybody doing the good and hard work of talent and HR every day.
I love it. And so obviously you're an analyst, you do research. So for anyone who's kind of not familiar even with what that is, because I know like as I was kind of getting into what I do now, I started running an analyst. I'm like, what do other researchers do? So maybe just get a little bit of light on that for maybe people who just aren't even familiar with what that is.
Sure. So it's funny because back in probably 2014, 13, I didn't know either. I was working as an HR leader for a company. One of my friends went to join an analyst firm, said, "Hey, you got to come try this. You're doing some writing and speaking on the side. This is like that, but with research." I'm like, that's weird. So I decided to give it a shot. And if I hated it, I mean, Joel, I'll just find another job as a recruiter. You do it well, you can always find an opportunity.
You can always hustle something new.
Yes. And so that was the mindset that I had. And so I said, I'll give it a shot. And I ended up loving it. I loved the chance to understand, like any one of us listening in right now, you probably have had a question like, I wonder what candidates do that. Or I wonder what would happen if we added in 2 extra steps to the process, like that hiring manager really wants to. What would that mean for our throughput of candidates? And you ask these questions and then you just kind of like let it slide because you got work to do. As an analyst, I get a chance to answer things like that. I get to look at the data. I get to survey candidates and say, hey, listen, guess what? Here's a quick tip for you. If you ask candidates, the number of touch points that's too many is anything more than 3. So if you have a couple of steps in there, phone screen and stuff, you find out that 3+ is overkill according to the candidates, depending on what they earn. And so for me, I get to find little tidbits like that and bring it back and share it with the market. So analysts cover research like that. Typically, they also do look at the technology landscape out there. In the time we've been doing this podcast already, Joel, like 10 new startups have started with some cool new virtual recruiter. It's going to replace us all.
And they've DM'd us and told us how they're going to disrupt the whole industry at the same time.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes. And would you please just write about us and tell the world about how great we are? And we'll send you free Skittles or something like that. No, thank you. So anyway, analysts cover usually the market on the technology side as well as the trends side, what's happening as far as research. So we work with companies on the vendor side. Again, I poke fun, but lots of those are friends and I work with them. I know you do the
Yeah.
same, Joel. And then
Yeah.
the other side of that is work with a lot of employers that are trying to figure out how do we use the data you're collecting on thousands of workers and thousands of employers to make the next right decision. And for me, that is the intersection of all the things that I love in life.
Well, I think what's crazy to me is, one of the things that I've been seeing, and I've been seeing a little bit of fight back around this as well, and I've heard this for at least a decade I've been in recruiting, this whole phrase like hiring is broken, right? We hear that all the time. Candidates complain, hey, I don't like the system. Um, I'm sure you talk to, internal leaders who, when you ask them, "Hey, how do you like your tech stack? How do you like the technology you're using?" Unless they just got it yesterday or they're researching something new, usually it's like, "Oh, I don't like it. I can make it better." And I think what's super interesting is, like you said, there's so much technology. There's technology that's emerging every single day, and it's been like that. And people had this dream of like, well, I applied for a job once and I had a terrible experience, and I think I can make this better. And I think what's crazy is like we have all this technology, but kind of people have been saying hiring is broken for a long, long time. So I've started to think and just wonder like, is hiring like actually that broken? Or like I guess in your mind, like if you were to go, okay, hiring isn't or hiring is fixed, like what do you think that looks like? Like what do you think people are looking for? And because obviously I think we can improve things, but like what do you think like that hiring is fixed might look like, or where do you think that angst is coming from?
That's a great question. A couple things. Number one, we've created some of our own problems. We've made it easier than ever to apply. We've reduced all friction, and so anyone can, with one tap of a finger or with a quick subscription to one of the AI tools out there to automatically apply for jobs. We've made it so easy to apply that we're creating more people to say no to, essentially. So there's a probably a middle ground in there somewhere where some friction's good, but that's an example of how the problem may have started to correct itself, and instead we've made it easier for people to apply, made it harder on ourselves. What does fixed look like? It's hard to say. On the company side, it's we can narrow down to the right person. We know with confidence that this person's able to do the job. We have some comfort that when we pick Joel, that he's going to be the one that solves the problems that we have.
Yeah.
The challenge with that is we're using an unstructured interview with an untrained hiring manager and a marketing document that Joel wrote called a resume to try to get that aligned, or that he had ChatGPT write for him. Right? We're using those mechanisms and signals for who to pick. And at the same time, we're hiring for that job description we took out of the archive and blew all the dust of it off from 4 years ago. We're going to
Yeah.
reuse that one again like it's the same job.
Copy and paste.
Yes. I'll just put final at the end of the file name, and I know that it's really the right one. But all like we laugh at this because we know it's true. And
Yeah.
everybody out there that's hearing this right now is probably smiling because you're like, oh, we just did that last week. But those are some of the problems and challenges with that make it hard to say what does great look like. Because in a perfect world, if the company was able to find the right person, get right to that, on the candidate side, there's still one person who's going to get a yes and everybody else is going to get a no. And I can tell you case studies. I can give you stories and examples of companies that have made that no feel less painful, made that no feel more like a, hey, not yet. Like those
Yeah.
are good examples of things we can do versus just getting you treated like you're a pariah.
Commodity.
You're never going to have an opportunity here. Ha ha ha! Evil steeple fingers, Mr. Burns style. That's not the case for most companies. They don't set out to end up that way, but through one reason or another, they end up with this process that seems faceless, that seems inhumane, and people get a no or get nothing at all, which is still a no. But it hurts more on the candidate side. So I think that's part of the problem is there's not an answer that's going to say, hey, suddenly everybody gets to hold hands and everybody gets the job and we're all happy. There's still going to be a lot of no's in that, but it's making the no's less painful, less burdensome on people. And again,
Yeah.
some of the data, even we've collected on that in the last 10 years, show us some ways you can do that are going to leave someone saying, hey, even if I didn't get the job, I still would come back again and apply here. I still tell other people to apply here because I was treated so respectfully in the process.
Yeah, I maybe it was about a year ago, Matt Lavery, who actually passed away unfortunately recently, which is super sad. But he was over at UPS, and I asked him that same question. I said, "What do you're hiring hundreds of thousands of people in a short amount of time. Um, how do you make the candidate experience better?" And he's like, "Transparency, communication, like regular touch points." And he said, "You see, it matters because for UPS." every applicant is a potential buyer, user of the product. And I was like, man, it's such an interesting mindset. And I wonder how many companies really think about that. Like, okay, this is, yeah, it's a candidate, but this is a potential buyer. This is someone who could refer in. And obviously, it's easier to envision that at a UPS, a FedEx, Amazon, even because so many people are using it. But it's having that mindset, I think, was refreshing. But I hit you with the hard question right from the get go. Let's talk about Ben. Like you mentioned, you started off in recruitment, HR, like leading teams. Um, you are a very people person. I know I've only interacted with you a little bit in real life, but you're clearly like someone who just loves people, bring a great energy, like just super, kind of like unifying presence. Like, did you kind of just know? Like, how did you get into HR? Like, you planned it out that way? Were you like, oh, I just love people, and how did that happen?
Oh, goodness. So the tongue in cheek version is I was the older middle of four boys. So I didn't have the position authority of the oldest, the CEO, to tell everybody what to do. So I was always like brokering deals and finding truces and trying to get everybody to do something they didn't want to do, which is sort of like the HR job description.
Yeah.
I worked for several companies when I was in college and in high school that were smaller businesses, and they all had trouble with hiring the right people, how to keep
Mm.
them, how to manage their benefits, all those sorts of things. So I was like, I'm going to try to do that. And then I probably can always have a job because these companies I've all struggled with it that I've worked for. And I get to school and going for management. And it was like, hey, write a paper on this thing called human resources. I'm like, sounds
Mm.
kind of boring. And once I started getting into it, I'm like, wait, no, this is what I've always wanted to do. It's got a name, actually. Someone else was here first. And so that's how I got my degree in HR and then went on into that field. And I think I was telling you this before. We were doing our prep call before, but when I was working in HR and someone's like, hey, okay, it's time for you to start doing some recruiting. I'm like, okay, like, please give me an admin, give me an accountant, something I understand. You're like, no. Here's a Black Hawk helicopter instructor pilot. Go find one of those for us. Like, oh Lord, I'm going to start from scratch and have to find this needle in a haystack of haystacks and try to do that. So I learned the hard way, like through some bumps and bruises, how to do recruiting from the ground up, and it was still my favorite part of the work that I ever did.
Yeah, I'm now recalling that story. It was pretty incredible, and I think what a way to get started in recruitment. Because if you had, maybe if you had had that accountant role, you'd have been like, this isn't a challenge.
Mm.
I'm moving on. So you started in recruitment, and then did you kind of, I guess, the speaking, the writing, is that just something too where that you've always been passionate about? Like, how did that kind of come about?
It's so funny because sometimes I forget. When I was going for my PHR, my professional designation in HR, I was writing about some of my study habits and things online just to sort of keep myself accountable, really. If
Yeah,
anybody read it, great. If they didn't read it, who cares? But it was to
I
me,
love
keep
that.
myself accountable because I was the person in school who was always my best time to study was between 7 and 7:30 in the morning, the day of the test. That was my time to study. And so for
Nice.
this, like, I can't do that. This is a 4-hour test. And so I was writing about it every week. And one week I was like I was sick or had a doctor's appointment or something and didn't post that week. And I had people reach out and say, hey, what happened? Did you quit? It's like, oh, people are actually reading this. And so to me, that was fun. And so I
Wow,
started writing after
love that.
that. Once I finished it, got my work, started working HR, I was writing with these things I was learning. And some of it was stuff everybody knew. But so much of what I found when I started doing that research, and no surprise to you that I love data and all that stuff, was, well, here's how you make your strategic plans, and here's how you do all this stuff. And it's like way up here. It was like there was no education for anybody that was just getting into it. How
Mm,
do I get from level 1 to level 2, not from level 9 to 10? Because that doesn't help me at all. I'm not going to be there for time.
yeah.
And so I started sharing along my journey what I could so it helped others. And in 2009, a friend of mine said, hey, I'd love for you to speak at our upcoming workshop. I said, that sounds great. I'm not sure I'm ready. She said, well, here's the agenda and here's your name on it. So I need you to get ready because this is going to happen. And so the
That's a
very
good
first time I
friend,
did
by
it,
the
I
way.
was, oh, God, like volunteering you to do something right there.
That's awesome.
So I still appreciate her for that because it pushed me out of my comfort zone. And most of us can probably identify with the time someone pushed us out of the comfort zone because they believed in us before we believed in us.
Mm,
And in that case, it was the thing I needed to help me see, wow, that was hard, but I really enjoyed it. And over the years, I'd like to think I've gotten better at it because I get chances to go and speak and share, whether it's at a small, all of our recruiting teams together from around the world. We're going to talk about what's next and what's trending, or I get on a big stage. And for me, it's not about the spotlight on me. It's about reminding everybody, listen, this job is tough. If it was
yeah.
easy, we'd call it marketing, right? Or we call it something else. This really is tough as a field of work. But it's also incredible and valuable and providing this service that is so, so needed. And so for me, a big part of it's just education and data and all those things like most analysts. But I want to remind people that you have a chance to impact someone's life in a positive way. And the work we're doing does that every day. And don't forget, don't give up hope, because that's the ultimate meaning. When we hang it up and go home at the end of the day, that's what we're having a chance to do.
Yeah, what I love about HR, recruitment, anything involving people, I think, at least from what I've experienced, people who are involved in it, there's always people who have a lot of empathy, people who genuinely care about other people. Um, but that's also what makes it so challenging as well, because sometimes I think, okay, technology, you can look at like a software developer, engineer, but oh, they're so smart. But it's like the technology doesn't talk back to you. The technology doesn't change its mind. The technology doesn't have feelings. It doesn't go through things. And I think that's what makes just anything to do with people so challenging, right? It's not
Mhm.
necessarily, hey, compliance is not really hard, but it's that we get in there with people and we're impacting lives and we're there. And um yeah, but that's also, it's like the greatest part, the hardest part, the most
Yes.
challenging, the most rewarding. It's all mixed in. What are your thoughts in terms of, we kind of talked a little bit about tech, and obviously you're looking at lots of tech. Future of like HR recruitment, I've been hearing a lot more people saying you got to have like a mindset, almost like of a engineer, tech leader. Like we're kind of coming into this realm where it's almost like a hybrid form of like a HR leader and CIO mixed with CFO. Like it's like you're becoming this amalgamation of like it's not just a siloed role. It's like you've got to understand people and technology and building teams. So like what are you seeing, and like how do you think this role is evolving, and like what advice do you have for people who are maybe nervous about that, or they're thinking, how do I prepare myself for this change? Like what are you seeing? What are your thoughts around that?
So it's funny because the very last chapter in the book, Artificial Intelligence for HR, which covers HR, yes, but talent development, recruiting, a little of everything under that universe of the people function. The very last chapter is on, okay, if this is all true, let's assume Ben's research is all correct. What does that mean for the future of the work we're doing? Because I don't want someone to just hear about all the technologies and think, oh crap, what is like, there's no job for me left over. What does that mean? And so what we found is that every time automation comes through any job, 200 years ago when it was mechanical
Farming,
automation,
yeah, yeah.
in the last in the last 20 years when it's digital automation, when that comes through, it strips away the repetitive parts of the work and leaves behind these human skills that are very hard to teach an algorithm to replicate. Things like
What are
creativity.
some of those skills? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So creativity, dreaming up something new. When we use tools like ChatGPT, we're like, wow, that's really creative. No, it's just pulling from what's already there. It's not generating anything new. It's already using what's out there already. So creativity, dreaming of something that wasn't there before. Compassion, really truly caring, not approximating caring. Joel, wow, that's a great idea. I'm so happy you
Mm.
know, like real true compassion. Do you hear and feel what the other person is feeling? Critical thinking. Yes, this is the problem. Algorithms march to an end and they stop within defined parameters. A human can say, that's not good enough. I'm going to actually think about how to get to another solution that's even better, that solves all of our needs, not just some statistical probability. So humans can do those things. Collaboration. One of the things that I'm most concerned about in the research around AI and what's happening in the world. 8 months ago, I was talking about AI's impact on entry level jobs, and now that's in every headline. The thing that I think is going to be next is
Just posted
AI's
about it
in.
today, by the way.
Ooh, there you go. See, and I think AI's the next thing that I'm concerned about is about AI's impact on connection. So, so easy to use an AI tool to ask for feedback, to share an
Yeah.
idea, to collaborate on something. And it's always programmed to tell you, great job, Joel. That's so good. Like, way to go. You're so smart. It's always programmed to do that. So you'll come back over and over and over. Whereas a true friend or someone you work with is like, hey, maybe a good
Yeah.
idea for some places doesn't work here. Here's 3 reasons why. Here's another way we could look at it, though, that may be better. That collaboration piece is a thing is a true human skill. And AI doesn't do that the same way that humans do. So
Well,
in
I've
the
I've seen
future, yeah,
I've seen talk around. It was just in the news yesterday on LinkedIn. I talk about like how I think it was to do with ChatGPT. Um, there's going to be some development with like handling like mental health issues and like almost being like a therapist. And
yes,
I think to your point, like, 'cause I've been thinking about this too. Like, it's like same with like Facebook and all the social media sites, right? Like, the goal is to drive ad revenue. The goal is to keep you using it. So if you don't use it for a while, it like makes up notifications to make you feel like you're getting notifications. But my notification
Yes.
might just be like, Tony posted. Okay, great. Well, that's not a reaction to one of my posts. But I was thinking like with ChatGPT, with all these tools that you're using, it's like the goal is for us to keep on giving it free data, and so it does do exactly what you said. Like, makes people feel good. So it's just becoming this other echo chamber. But it's
Mhm.
I don't think everybody is really aware of like they're how they're building, how they're using that data, and like how yeah, like you're using this tool, for pretty cheap, even if you're paying a monthly subscription, and it's helping you kind of get ahead with some projects and things like that. But ultimately, it's like still the product. Like the product is like how you use it. Which is crazy to me, but I've heard more talk around that echo chamber and like how it makes you feel good, makes you want
Mhm.
to keep using it. Hey, Ben, great idea. But have you tried this? It's like people have tried to out-train it of that, but it just flips back to this method, um, which is crazy, and then it's like you lose critical reasoning then because and you lose also the
Yes.
ability to have anybody in real life tell you, "Hey, no, maybe you're wrong." Like, it's like we just live in a world where, like, anything you say is just validated, either by other people and now by AI. It's just wild.
I was going to go in three different directions, and you mentioned that last part. I'll stick on that one because this is a fun story. So my squirrels have squirrels, Joel. Okay, so I'm like I want
Good.
to go in every direction. That last part of being validated and being able to deal with rejection. Today, people have a very hard time dealing with rejection. Someone does
Yeah.
something you don't like. The first thing you do isn't to say, "Hey, can we talk about that? Like, I don't know that that was the right way you handle that. Let's talk through it. Let's hash this out." No, the first thing I do is, "Hold on, I'm posting on Facebook about this dummy and where they did." Like we go
Totally.
immediately to some place and share that because everybody around us will say, "Oh, you're right,"
Yeah.
and they will never say, Maybe you should have just stopped and had a conversation."
And if they do, you just block them.
Yes, you ignore them or say, "Well, you just don't understand. You just don't
Yeah.
know. You don't get it." So there was a great book written a couple years ago called Rejection Therapy. And it was
Mhm.
by a gentleman. He had gone to get funding for his business. They turned him down and he was crushed. He was
Well, and to get
devastated.
funding for the business, you gotta go I mean, it's out that's super hard. There's a lot of rejection
Well,
in that.
so hang on. Here's the story. So he's like, I can't let this cripple me because I'm going to get told no a lot. So he
Mhm.
went on. We called his journey of rejection therapy. He went out
Mhm.
and intentionally tried to get rejected every single day for a period of time, just to inoculate himself against that feeling. So he went to
Mm.
Krispy Kreme. And was like, "Hey, would you design these in the shape of the Olympic rings?" And what he found is sometimes you'll ask for something that seems out there, and people did it. They did it for him and created that for him. He was like, "Wow, that I didn't even think you would." He also went to a burger place, had his burger, came back up with the wrapper, said, "Hey, can I get a refill on this burger?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we don't do refills on burgers." And he's like, "Why?" And so he started a fun conversation with the guy behind the counter, chat like, "Why do we do that for drinks, but not for this?" And what he found was every no was an opportunity to have a conversation, have a deeper
Mm.
connection with someone potentially. And so instead, though, today, many of us are, if it's a no, it's they're wrong. I'm right. They just don't know. They don't understand. They don't have the context. And maybe it's no because there's real legit reasons for it. And we've lost the ability as individuals to take a no. And there's probably a way to bring this back around to the hiring thing. But anyway, you brought up the validation part, and that's where my mind went over that because it's a great story and reminder that yes, you're going to get no's. And instead of shrinking away from it or trying to find a way to be right, say, you know what? I'll just continue getting no's until I feel okay about it. And it works.
Well, I mean, that's part of the collaboration too, right? It's like
Yeah.
into order to collaborate with people and work together, there's a compromise, and
Mhm.
it's. But if we start to get used to, using a tool that's constantly telling us we're right or we're doing a great job, it just becomes hard to actually produce a solution because again, it's like even with DE&I, that's why DE&I is important because you need different voices and perspective. You need people who've lived different things to be able to actually approach a problem to come up with a solution. It's like if everyone's just thinking the same way, you're not going to solve anything. But I've seen the studies that more people who are using Chat GPT, it's like they're losing these like critical areas. And then I've also seen like in my personal life, um, I've seen this weird thing where like people are like almost like communicating like with AI instead of like actually communicating. Like people would rather just click a button for like an email than
Mhm.
like actually write the email themselves, or like on social media, they'd rather just like use some automated comment system instead of actually commenting. And I'm like, hold on a second. Like, it's social media. Like, yeah, it's media, but like the social part is actually what this is about. It's just a different way for us to connect. The end goal isn't just to have like a million comments and million followers on this like weird platform. The idea is like, hey Ben, I see you. I see what you wrote, and now I want to leave a comment to like connect with you. But the end goal should be, Ben, I want to have a conversation with you and learn about you and like collaborate. Um, but then it's like, what's the next thing? You're gonna have an AI romantic coach that's like communicating with your spouse because you're too lazy to, to text them and say I love you. It's like AI, oh, text her and say I love you. It's like, where does that end? It's just
Well,
crazy.
you want a creepy one? So there's this trend in Asia where they are actually developing death bots. And so they'll take all of the recordings of someone who you love that has passed away, all the videos, all the photos, everything else, all any writing content they have, and it will recreate an AI in their voice. And so you can still talk to long lost brother Johnny or whatever else, even if they're gone. And I want to be insensitive to those people and their loss, but you are building a bridge to a thing, not to a person, and that delays your ability to overcome that, your ability to move on from that, your ability to move on with your life and be who you're supposed to be because you're tethering yourself to something that's not real, something that makes you feel good in the moment. But how is that any different from other like a drug or something else that's just it makes you feel good for them for now, but then I need more of it in order to continue feeling good. That's the same exact sort of thing, except for here, right?
Well, I saw, I don't know if you follow or if you watch the show Black Mirror at all, but that was an episode on Black Mirror, which for anyone who doesn't know Black Mirror, it's basically like a window into what potentially could happen with technology. And
Yes.
typically they kind of take a darker
Nightmarish.
turn. And
Yes.
yeah. But there is an episode where that's exactly what it is. And which is crazy now that I don't know if they have Black Mirror there, but if that's what's
Mm.
happening, it's like very ominous. Because also it's like there's like human experience that's important. Like rejection, see, rejection is like an important part of life, just like grief is an important part of life. Like it's not comfortable. Like no one's like, oh great, I get to grieve, but it's part of a human experience. And it's like you don't want to you don't actually want to lose those like human experiences. Because then it's like you lose grasp of reality then. It's just it's wild.
I heard someone once say that births and deaths are the tuning forks of life. And a tuning fork is
Mm,
what they use to set an instrument, right? To get it ready to play and to let it create something beautiful. And the tuning
wow.
fork is what lets you tune that in. And so for our own lives, when you're around someone that something like that happens to good or to ill, it's your moment to sort of get a reset on, wow, you know what? I've realized that I have not made the most of my life these last years. I'm going to do that now. Or for any of us who have had that first kid, you're like, oh my gosh, what does this mean for me?
I am
I've got to
responsible.
shape up and get ready. Yes, like there's no manual. Where I lost the manual. What's the deal there? So yes, all those things give us chances to sort of reset. And again, if you do not have that moment to reset, if that actual grief or that joy does not happen, then I mean, what you're not a human anymore, essentially, right? You're missing those
So
key things.
I love this because we have gone truly on like a rabbit hole here into AI. But it's I think where it's important is like right now we're at a weird crossroads of 'cause I kind of nailed down like three people. You've got like the super excited, like obsessed, like all in. Then you have people who are like, yeah, I totally see like AI is a thing. It's going to be here. It's not a trend. Like I'm trying to figure it out. And then you kinda just have, like, the other people who are like, "Yeah, I don't actually know, and I'm kind of just, like, afraid of this." And because they're afraid, then they don't wanna be curious, and they don't wanna know anything. Um, I guess when you're looking at these different types of people, and obviously, like, you're dealing with a lot you're talking about this technology, what in your mind are, like, some of the mistakes that people are making right now in the way that they're thinking about this tech? And, like, maybe what are some of the ways that you're seeing people, like, really, really um, kind of take a hold of what's going on and they're being successful? Like, what are you seeing in those kind of areas?
So I'll tell you that one of the biggest pieces of advice that I've been giving in the last year or two is we're past the phase where we say Can AI do that? Because the answer is almost always yes. It can do almost anything you can imagine, especially in the like the recruiting process. The example, it can do anything in there.
Yep.
Send messages, rate candidates, all those things.
Screen people.
Yes, the answer is yes. Can it? The answer, the question should be, should AI be doing that? When we actually survey candidates in the last 2 years, their discomfort with AI, there's them saying, I don't want AI doing any of this stuff, has gone up 2x in the last 2 years. So that's dramatically
And
risen.
are you surveying like what's kind of like the
A
demographic?
candidate is someone who is actively looking for work. That's who we actually target with that survey. So we survey them every year, about 1,000 candidates, and try to figure out what's going on with them. Now, the thing that gets me though, that's not the number one answer when we ask them about what they're comfortable with AI being used in the hiring process. The number one answer is matching me to a job that fits my skills. They're more interested in that than they are in being afraid of it. So if they perceive the value to outweigh the risk, then candidates are willing to go along with it. One other thing we found, we actually surveyed candidates on their consent language. So Joel's company XYZ is going to use AI to screen candidates. We need to get their consent up front. You can give them the very generic, hey, we're using AI to screen candidates. They don't really love that. You can give them a little more descriptive. Hey, we're using AI. It's going to look at your skills and your experiences to rate you. But their most preferred answer is number 3. We're using AI to screen candidates, and we're not considering your age, your gender, all these other things about who you are. We don't use those things against you. They prefer that protective language over explanatory language. So there's a tip for anyone listening in that's thinking about this. Now, so the thing that I've been sharing, I'll go back to this piece of advice. Let's say that you're using some sort of AI to save you time. Recruiting teams are saving anywhere from, a few hours a week up to crazy amounts of time automating stuff that they were doing manually before. But the real value, I argue, doesn't come in automating something. Joel, if you automated 20% of your week right now, 20% of your workload, and you put your feet up on the desk and you took a nap,
yeah,
I could argue that was zero value created.
Yeah.
It just allowed you to do nothing for that time, where you started playing Candy Crush or Farmville or whatever the cool game is now. I don't know what it is. So if you're doing that, it's not creating something new. Let's say I freed up 1 hour. What do you use that marginal hour for? Suddenly, that's where the new opportunity comes from. And the reason I shared this is because there was a study done a few years ago, and this researcher looked at company founders and he evaluated them. He did a survey with them on an assessment on their creativity, their innovativeness. And what he found was what you'd expect with a test, like that normal distribution of scores from low to high with a lot of people in the middle. And we went back and looked at those companies they founded and the value they created in terms of new jobs, which is job security for us, and in terms of revenue they created. What he found was there was this curve that went up along that based on the score they got. But that 5 to 10% of people that scored at the very top of creativity for founding a company, the value they created, the new jobs they created, the revenue was off the charts hockey stick growth. And I use that as one of my indicators that automating doesn't create that kind of value. Automating just means I'm giving you some time to do something new. Just put your feet up and dream. That was one of the things that I love. Everybody thinks about Henry Ford for the assembly line. And he did a lot of things around efficiency with his workforce, his frontline people, but his executives, he said, I don't want people that are busy all the time. I want executives who will put their feet up and dream, because that's where our next big idea is going to come from.
I love that. Yeah, and I think, even going before that, it's like figuring out what are when you alluded to this and you talked about it earlier, it's like figuring out what are those repetitive tasks, first of all. I love that idea. This first time I've heard someone like actually saying like, look at like the value that those tasks are creating. Because again, it's like, what are we going to, the automatic automations are around like getting information, messaging people, sourcing, scheduling. But it's like, okay, scheduling. It's not like unlimited scheduling it's like, it's not like I'm going to schedule a million meetings on my my calendar. It's going to be limited, right? It's like a finite amount of scheduling that anyone could possibly do. And it's like with messaging, it's like, in fact, what I would argue now is like messaging and reaching people and trying to get attention from people is getting harder because there's more messages.
Yes.
So it's like now we're kind of going back to that piece of like, to me, it's much more important to send a message that's relevant, that's timely, that's bringing value, that's personalized. That's what stands out. So it's not like, again, it's like if I can automate it and go, I've just found a way that I could send out a million messages. It's like, well, okay, even as like a business, do I need a million new clients? No, I probably need a handful, right? So it's like you start thinking
Mhm.
about that. But I think people are either hung up on, I don't even know what the problem and the bottleneck is. And then when they do that, it's like, okay, yeah, like you said, what are we going to do with that time? How are we going to maximize that time? And I think with like recruitment in particular and HR should all be doubling down on like relationships and how do we partner more with the humans in the business? How do we start to think strategically with them? But the challenge with that I've seen is because a lot of the role has become administrational, and because I think a lot of corporate America and a lot of different roles has become kind of administrational. It's like people aren't used to like having to dig deeper and have those strategic conversations. So it's like a muscle that we almost need to grow in, and kind of figure out and go, okay, do we actually know the businesses we're serving? Like, how do we know more so we can give more to the businesses as well?
Okay, so I'll give you two things really quick. Number one, it's a piece of data. It's funny because you talk like you were reading off of the charts from the study. So we actually asked the question: are you using AI to save time? If so, is it's how much time is it saving you? And then what are you doing with that freed up time? When we
Mm,
finally ask talent acquisition leaders and recruiters that question, one of the top answers is spending more time with the key candidates. They're not getting
mm,
the same peanut butter spread time everybody else gets. They get a little more extra time because they're a key candidate. I spend more time building stakeholder relationships. And my biggest piece of advice for that, if you're like Joel just mentioned, you're like, man, I haven't built that muscle in a while. I need to start that. It's just ask them questions like, hey, what keeps you up at night? What are some of the things that you want to accomplish right now? What are the things that are frustrating you most when it comes to the work that you're doing? Because occasionally you'll hear something, not always, sometimes it's a thing that's widely outside your ballpark, but occasionally it's a talent thing. And you're like, ah, I may have an idea for you. And that starts a fun conversation around a problem they have. The other piece of that is we're also spending more time proving to the business the value we're bringing. So not just talking about, hey, we filled those jobs faster or we scheduled more interviews, but we actually filled these positions with people who were higher performers than the ones we filled with last year because we have better screening practices. Because of that, it's going to lead to this potential outcome on revenue or customer satisfaction or something else. We're trying to prove to the business, look what we're bringing, look what we're doing. There's new value here because we are working smarter and harder, both. And that's what brings joy to me because it's not just we're putting our feet up or we're just laying recruiters off, but we're doing other things that add new value that wasn't there before.
I love that. I love it. And I think it's not even just in TA now, right? Is it? 'Cause I was talking to someone
Yeah.
else today. It's like every department. So for people who are in marketing, if you're in sales, if you're in customer success, whatever kind of role you're in, there's so much more of a need to just know the businesses you're serving. And we're going from siloed business units that are like serving a function to there's a part of every role that just is impacting the business. And I think that's the biggest challenge I'm seeing for people who enter the job market now is people aren't necessarily trying to fill roles in companies. They're trying to add value to their business. And it's like, it's very, I think it's a challenge for people to know what's the actual value they're bringing in a role. And obviously like talent acquisition, it's a tougher one, right? Because it's like statistically, it's just been, all right, we filled these roles quicker, or we had these openings and we filled it. Our spend went down with agency. Um, but I think it's really learning and like looking deeper into whatever role you're in. What's the end value that I brought? And I think it's just a whole different mind shift that businesses are now they're caring less about headcount and a lot more about efficiency and productivity per person. And then as an individuals, like we need to start thinking that way. But it's a new way of thinking. And I think it's what like, I guess what like for people to like change their thinking, because I've been talking about this more too, like transformation of just like thinking, the way that we think about things.
Mm.
For maybe someone who's listening who's like, I worked at the same company for 10 years. We just had a restructuring. I'm laid off. I don't really know what direction to go in. Like, what would be your advice for people to just think differently? And like, how do you start to get to think differently in these types of ways?
I think the biggest thing is that thinking, that bigger perspective will not come find you. You have to go find it.
Mm,
So if you want to have a bigger perspective, you have to talk to people who are outside of your normal lane, have conversations with people who are outside of your bubble. One of my good friends completely outside this bubble of HR and talent. He works for the local emergency management authority, but we talk on a regular basis. He's telling me the challenges he has when working in that sort of capacity. I'm listening to those things, and it gives me ideas for the work that I do radically different from that, but it gives me ideas from having other perspectives. So I would encourage people, again, here's another reason not to use ChatGPT to brainstorm stuff. Use other people as sounding boards.
I love
Talk
that.
to people that are outside of that normal bubble. Yes, it's great to have friends who are also recruiters. So you can swap the stories. Say, you'll never guess what this candidate just did. Like, I can't even believe it. Oh my gosh. I'll just tell you, Joel, don't ever forget the time I almost hired a guy who forgot to wear pants. Um, that's a great one. But like, we have these stories, we have these examples, but the best way to gather those is to go find them. I was talking to a group just recently about career development, how to take control of your career. And the biggest piece of advice was that same thing. Like, your passion, the thing that you were made to do, it doesn't just go show up and you're like sitting on the couch, like,
Mm.
Eureka, I know it, lightning bolt strike. Usually it's a process of sculpting, what the researchers call it, where you start trying something and you carve away and peel away pieces that don't fit you very well until you land in that zone where you are truly great. And if you just do one thing, you don't get a lot of chances to peel those other things away and find out what you do and don't like, honestly. So there's
So
my
true.
best advice for that.
Well, I love it. I'm just reminded of like, it's like you mentioned it earlier before, right? You got out of your comfort zone, right? Like for you, it was like, oh, I'm speaking. I don't have a choice. But the challenge is we live in a culture which loves comfort and we love the easy path and convenience. So we just love these things. But it's like growth just does not come in that place. It's highly unlikely you're going to grow if you're super comfortable. Um, and so a lot of times you got to seek out that discomfort. Like I love that book about a guy just getting rejected. It's like I feel like any candidate that I talk to like needs that book right now.
Mhm.
And I tell people that I'm like, look, the rejection, it's a bad thing. It's you deal with it and you move on, and then it's like with starting a business, it's the same thing. It's like you fail, 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 and there's so much to be. I think Gary Vee talks about this. He just talks about like how you get comfortable with failure. He's been saying that a lot recently. Like, get comfortable with just failing, um, because it's like if you could be comfortable with failing and rejection and these things, it just makes you a stronger person. But it's just knowing that like our culture, our advertising, like everything in our way of life is like not driving us that way. It's just driving you to be comfortable and stagnant and
Mhm.
things. And so I think even with like this kind of shakeup, this great restructuring they're calling it, and all of these things that are moving around, we can look at it on the surface and be like, this is scary, it's unknown. But I think the people who do well are the ones who are like, yeah, like unknown, uncertainty, change. It's not bad. It can actually be incredibly positive. And so I need to take a hold of that, which I love. So where I know we're running up on a time here, and I feel like we could just talk all day, every day, like 24 hours a day, which that'd be my dream. But where could people find you to connect with you, the work that you're doing? And I'd love to just hear about any like events that you've got coming up as well, where people can connect with you in real life.
Yeah. So if you have heard some of the research I talked about today and you're curious about that, we actually make that freely available. We don't charge for it for practitioners. So you could find that on our website, lhra.io for Lighthouse Research and Advisory. You can get it there, dive into the library, find all the stuff, dig into your heart's contents. We cover everything under the sun when it comes to HR, talent development, recruiting for sure. So you'll find some good stuff. Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn like every good recruiter is, and you can find me there. You can see some of the things I share. Sometimes it's about one of the 5 kids. Sometimes it's about some of the work we're doing. Sometimes it's a research question that I'm wrestling with, trying to figure the answer to. And so I love sharing there and having good conversations with people like you, Joel, as well,
Yeah,
just
well,
to
you got
understand
like
what's changing.
45,000 followers over there.
A
Definitely,
couple, there's a couple out there.
I love that.
Again, it's my job to serve, Joel. It's my job to serve.
Well, I love that. It's always super valuable, thought provoking. I love all your updates. So always good
Thank you.
content. So I'd encourage anyone follow, connect, reach out to Ben, and then if you're a practitioner out there as well, dive into some of the research because I
Mhm.
think the challenge is right now, like if you're not going to get it, it's not like things aren't going to happen for you, right? It's like your company's not going to teach you how to be more efficient with AI. Like you probably have to learn for yourself and figure it out and get involved in those conversations. So, what about in real life? Any events coming up that you're going to that you're excited about?
Oh yeah, always an event coming up, Joel. So I'll be at HR Tech. Unleash World is on our agenda potentially this
Nice.
fall. So a couple things like that are coming up where I'm excited to again hear what's the latest, see some of the different companies out there. I'm thinking this year the theme is going to be agents for everything. It's going to be we're going to see on every single booth at HR Tech is
I
my
love that.
guess. So we'll see agents everywhere is my sort of tagline. I need to make a shirt, Joel. Just like have a
Well,
big,
the year
you
after
know.
it is just gonna be like back to humanity.
I
The
know. We can
takeover the
only
agent.
hope. We can only hope.
Out
Back
of
to
the
Humanity
matrix.
probably doesn't get much VC money, but agents will get you a big old valuation. So there you go.
Man, I love it. Well, Ben, thanks so much for taking the time with us. And guys, I just encourage you go connect with Ben, go follow Ben on LinkedIn, check out his research as well. And if you guys have questions for myself, just reach out to www.therealistrecruiter.com if you're interested in connecting with us here at the show. Or if you've got questions, get a hold of me. Would love to chat. And Ben, thank you so much again, and we'll see you guys next week.